where you can ask questions and hopefully you'll get an answer, or we dialogue together and try to come up with some remedies and some situations and some answers. And we're going to give you one of these. And Brenda's going to talk, first of all, just a little tiny bit about a January meeting that she has thought would be a good idea. So let's start out with that, and then we're going to open the floor to discussions on numerous things that we've talked about today already. Okay? Brenda.
All right. Just to show you some of the information that I've been inundating Alan and Grace and Dave and Barb and Lisa with is just over the last week. This is all scientific reports and analysis on the lakes in Canada mainly for Quebec and Ontario that have permitted to get the weevil in their areas and help their lakes. I limited a number of these, but maybe people can share. This is the DVD right here, which is the milfoil solution to enviroscience. So I do have a few copies of these. Bill, I'll give you a couple for your group to circulate around, okay?
Would you explain who Enviroscience is?
Enviroscience is a company that's based out of Ohio, and they're the only ones right at the moment that are doing mass rearing of the milfoil weevil in the United States, and they brought projects into Ontario and Quebec in 2003, 2005, around there somewhere. And they have quite a few lakes in Ontario and Lac Superior, not the Great Lakes. They have a project going on in Quebec. The first 2 years that they brought the milfoil from the States to Quebec, they had a permit. That permit was pulled after 2 years into the project because of changes to legislation. So now it is federal jurisdiction to get all the permits in place to bring it. So the milfoil was verified to be in Christina Lake 2 years ago and was sampled at the University of British Columbia in the Okanagan, and it was positively ID'd as the milfoil weevil. And so Dave and I have been reading a lot and checking out reports, and there's a lot of studies on the pumpkin seed sunfish or the sunfish family, and they did a gut survey, like catch fish, see what's in the gut, and there was a low content of the milfoil weevil because the more diverse a lake is, you have a lot more insects that are bigger than a sesame seed. That's about the size of the milfoil weevil. Okay, so I started a list together for a potential meeting at the end of January that we want to bring together all the main players because we're such a small region. We need to bring in funding and other things to get involved and possibly have the province listen to this a little bit better. So I'm going to read the list of Lisa and Barb and whoever may know other people, and Anna. Okay, so I have Hamish Casa, who is North Okanagan Regional District, and he does Shuswap Lake, and he's been doing milfoil like for 20 some odd years. I have Matthias, is that how you pronounce it? Matthias Herborg, okay, and he's the provincial specialist in invasive everything. I don't know who would be the contact for Cultus Lake.
I don't know either, but Matthias or Susan Turner would know.
Okay. And I'll put it here over him. Okanagan Basin Water Board, I really don't know who.
Anna Warwick's here.
Okay. Okay, I have Susan Turner. I've got Anna and Ford. Okay. I don't really know. You guys were saying that there's nobody from BC, Okanagan, South that came down to that meeting in Oroville, right?
Just the Okanagan Water Board covers all aquatic issues.
Okay.
The Okanagan Basin.
Okay, so
the one.
we have Anna Words. Okay. We are also Enviroscience, Bob Florian, who's doing Ontario and Quebec and actually has reared the weevils and set up a rearing station in laboratory facilities in Ontario. We want to invite him. We also want to invite another member from Enviroscience based out of Ohio. And that's what I've got so far, is getting all the players together.
So you'll need two from the federal government, because if it's the feds that legislate it,
yes,
that needs to be at the table.
Absolutely. So
and I don't know who that is, but
I think it says Environment
Canadian
one.
Food, I think it's Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Environment Canada. I think there's multiple layers.
Yes, might go blue.
Yeah, and Susan had spoken to me about it, so they'd be good companies. But
Yeah.
without them at the table, I mean, even if the province is 100% behind us,
Yeah.
if the feds say no, then they say no.
We actually do, if anybody wants to look at it later.
It's too difficult to hear the back,
You
so
can't hear?
everybody speak up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk louder now.
Well, we're almost
We're almost there. So, we did get letters from Ontario Environment Canada for the Ontario permitting process and the Canadian Food Inspection. Thank you, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So we have copies of their letter to bring forward to this meeting about what the process was for them. We also have a policy document draft that was done up for the Ontario Biocontrol using the milfoil weevil document. So we have quite a lot of information together, but we need to talk to all these people. So that means some dollars. But what I'm thinking is that if we could bill it out, people to stay, so we're not paying for accommodation, maybe have a few potluck dinners and lunches and stuff, we could do this at a fairly low-key pricing. Anyway, so that's kind of the idea.
And I think Grant Nate can probably pick up the cost of that. You know, this is a community issue, and the more we get it, the better off we're going to be. So,
And the reasoning behind having these people all come in here and talk to us is I don't think we really have anything to lose looking into it. And the other thing is that it did happen to work out. We have a fabulous facility over here that could be used, a solar aquatics, potentially to rear them. It also could be a moneymaker. We're not saying immediately. None of this stuff is immediate. It takes a long time. But it's all stuff that can come to the table with this group of people. So that's kind of where it's at.
okay, so let's open the floor to questions, please. We'll need your name when you ask a question, and this is largely for the videotape so that we can document, get back to you if you need further information. So we're going to open the floor, and is there a specific topic you'd like to start out with? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Ray Hansen.
Ray Hansen.
I was wondering whether you or somebody in the regional district can update us on what's happening with the community forest protection money that is doled out at the UBCN to regional districts to do projects for their protection plan.
You mean the thinning and the cleaning and
Yep.
that we did on Crown land?
Yep.
Well, we had quite a program go through here. We actually did an awful lot of that here. If you want a total update on that, you need to talk to John McLean because we're in partnership. But I'll tell you, there are some people that are very upset about that program right now because there are some people that have not benefited from that, and I don't know quite where it's going. So I would hesitate to give you an update on something that I haven't dealt directly with.
But do you know whether there's anything in the works for this local area?
Not this year. We had it last year.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda.
Linda Tucker, my question is regarding to riparian rights.
Yep.
When we get our home, and we're just 2 blocks up Fife, but it was the Department of Highways that had their thumb on our head in regard to that. And so I'm wondering if we brought in this program that we're talking about, where's the jurisdictional lines here between the regional district and Department of Highways or Government of British Columbia, whatever you want to call it?
Mark.
Yeah, I think as far as the riparian setback and covenant requirements that were applied to your property, that was done during your subdivision of the property, is that right?
It could be.
Yeah, I think it was. When you were proposing to subdivide the property, you made an application to the Ministry of Transportation and Highways, Transportation and Infrastructure now. And as part of that application process, because you're on the creek, the ministry prefers the application out to various ministries. Normally, the Ministry of Environment, and if not the approving officer themselves, will require as part of that process that a covenant be registered on the property to protect the riparian area adjacent to the creek. That's already being done at the subdivision stage, regardless of what's happening here. At Christina Lake, the proposal we're looking at doesn't apply to subdivisions, it applies to new building construction in addition to existing buildings. So, as I mentioned during my presentation, the number of lots we have at Christina Lake on the lakeshore right now, for example, won't increase in the future because the zoning bylaw has effectively put a moratorium on any new subdivision around the lake. So we're not talking about a new subdivision of lots at Christina Lake. We're talking about development permit requirements that would help to protect the riparian areas as people are building houses or putting additions onto houses. The Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure requirements at the subdivision stage for subdivision of properties along a creek, river, or lake will likely continue to apply at the subdivision stage. So those are two separate questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Questions? Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Mike Fairweather, I understand that there was somebody here from the Lake Windermere area, and from a report on the media a year or so ago, there was a program that your area of BC undertook to limit development, boat size, and so forth on Lake Windermere. And I'd like to know a little bit more about what it was that you had to go through to make that happen, and did it happen, and has it happened, and what's the status?
Questions?
Okay, I actually got a call from Brenda about this, so I would hope to diffuse myths throughout the region. There is no boat ban on Lake Windermere. There's no limits on boat size on Lake Windermere. There are no restrictions of any sort on boating on Lake Windermere. So just spread the money so keep it going. I mean, it's very detrimental to our work because we're trying to get ahead of some good, projects on the lake and working with the regional district and helping with their plans. But there's a myth out there that everybody's conspiring to lose rates.
Was the problem with respect to compliance?
I don't know, but I think the problem is rooting in the wetlands regulations because we have the wetlands in our territory. Okay. And so they are having restrictions on putting in.
Okay. So, for example, there are restrictions on open headers on boats. It's an issue in the open lake, in the Okanagan, cigarette boats. They can't operate more than a kilometer from shore. It's an issue on this lake. Not many, but they do exist. But the issue in terms of regulating it is compliance and enforcement.
And it's only Transport Canada that can do this.
Transport Canada and, it would be Transport Canada or Canadian Coast Guard or RCMP. So in this lake, it was the RCMP and Transport Canada. And it's clear that the RCMP are not totally okay with the regulations.
One thing we do have with the lake management plan, which is the lake management plan, encourages voluntary, best practices. The neighborhood of leaving, lights on at night, try to cut in front of other boats, because those kind of things.
One other question relating to these Kootenays, and this is permitting for boats. And my understanding is that there are some people on Christina that have applied for foreshore rights to legally have a work. And that this may be something which is being pursued more energetically by whatever branch of government might be involved, Mark, in this particular issue. And I haven't seen it as an issue that's been raised at Christina, but it could well be.
I can speak to that. We did have someone come out and speak about that a few years ago. Brenda Remember that? About licensing dogs? And yes, they are encouraging everybody actually to license their dog. You know, and then the liability issues that go along with that and whatever. Having said that, it doesn't mean everyone is wanting to do that. So, you know, that's part of the ongoing conversation. Dogs are a huge issue, both liability-wise, milfoil-wise, you name it. And in a lot of the Okanagan lakes, they pull their dogs out to take care of milfoil. So we did have a person come in and speak to that, and that was integrated land management, I think, that came and
And I
talked
can
to us.
add to that a little. So technically, by law, you are required to have a permit from under the Land Act to occupy Crown land. And so a dock occupies Crown land. Anything below the natural boundary is Crown land. Now, historically, that hadn't been done and it hadn't been followed up on. So most docks, a lot of docks around a lot of BC lakes are not permitted. So there is an authorization process. It's called a specific permission if your dock is under a certain size, and it's called something else if it's over. I don't actually deal with that end directly, but technically by law, if you don't have that, your dock's illegal. The other piece is you require a Water Act permit if you're going to do work in and around your dock. So if you're going to repair or replace it, you need to get a Water Act permit, and those are free. But you just need to do a notification. So there is some legislation around that.
Okay, and when we're talking, can we please have those who are talking and those who are answering stand up so all of you can hear them. Okay, next question. Okay, so,
I would like to hear Anne talk about what their plans are for what they're going to be doing with biocontrol down in Sluice Lake in Washington State.
Good plan.
Anne Lyon, Okanagan, Speed Board. What we are doing at this point is very, very small. Last year, we applied for a grant with our Department of Ecology. Part of that grant is to do a weevil pilot project. I've been in contact with EnviroScience, this group here that has weevils, and we are devising some kind of a project that will establish just exactly how easy it is to rear those weevils and how viable a solution it will be for the lake. So they have, EnviroScience has indicated that they will supply a $4,000 worth of weevils, which is about 4,000 weevils or so. But we're going to set up a very small pilot project with a very small portion. EnviroScience has a lot of interest in having a facility that we can maybe distribute bugs from Lake Osoyoos. If it's on an international area, they can go north, south. So there's a lot of options that we're talking about.
Yeah, and you and I were talking at lunch about this also, because with the solar aquatic machine that we have down here at Christina Lake, should we ever want to do that, we could probably recreate the environment for the weevil through that system. But you know, along with that is prior to all of the paperwork, all of the agencies, all of the people involved. So, you know, it's really difficult. Right?
Yes, it's a huge, huge effort. Last year, we began discussions with several of our state and federal agencies down in Washington, local county weed boards, conservation districts, everybody, including our boundary weed management and South Okanagan smoke mead as our weed districts in Canada. God, it's great.
Sunglasses.
Yeah. And we started basically an international coordinated weed management area because everybody's doing their own little thing with aquatic vegetation. And everybody's going to continue doing their own little thing. And, you know, hey, you want to use the harvester because you like big equipment and you think it's great and everything, and your neighbor's going, oh my God, you know. So the thought behind this international CWMA is to bring everybody to the table and say, hey, what's working, what works here might not work here, but it's going to open doors and start a lot of dialogues like this, and maybe we can get more interest in these weevils. I think nobody wants to go out and dump herbicide in a lake. Sometimes it's a good, viable alternative, just because it's the last solution.
Yeah, and further to that, we do belong to the same group, which is, I think, really, really good. There is a meeting in Wenatchee on January the 12th, and I'm hoping to attend that because that'll be cross-border. So there'll be a lot of interaction with information. I agree that we need to, there are some things that work in some places, some things that don't work in some places. There are people, like you say, that want this, but somebody else doesn't want that. This is not an easy solution. It is not going to be an easy solution. And I don't think we can view anything that we do as the be-all and end-all of the whole thing. I think it's ongoing. We need to have a short-term, a long-term plan there. We need to try it, see if it's working, monitor it, which is exactly what Al Stanley was talking about. We intend to do more and more and more of that and try to see if we, at the end of it all, have any of the right answers. No lake out there that I have ever talked to, or we've ever talked to, has ever said we have the answer to the milfoil problem. And I doubt that Christina Lake is going to be able to make that statement either.
And if they do say that, if they say that they have the answer, I got a bridge too.
Yeah, me too.
It's highly susceptible.
Yeah. Okay, so are there more questions around that? Yeah, go ahead.
For Watershed Lake Louise Association, I just have a question. And first of all, I'm impressed with your group, your energy, the enthusiasm that you have for taking care of your lake. I wish we have a little bit more of that on the U.S. side. My question is about your buoy system that you put in. After you put that in, did you notice any less fragmentation of from boats going through it?
Andy Gilmore, the full program. The buoy system that we've had in South Bay here was expanded in 2008 to show how large the patch is growing. It's growing every year. Boats don't go into that area primarily because their engines stop working. It's so thick that they cannot operate in there. So in that area it has worked. The North Bay, we put those buoys in 2010. And we have had some success. I think someone mentioned, Tracy mentioned there was a boat in there. There were a few problems in that area this year. Boats were, it's located next to a campground, and boats were using our buoys as their boat anchors, and they messed up our anchor system, so we had to redo that this year. But for the most part, they do have a pretty positive impact. And residents, especially in the South Bay, if they see anybody getting close to the areas they shouldn't be, I've seen boats chase out of there by residents.
I think your question is related to the North Bay project, is it?
Well, just about the
okay.
I mean, on our lake, after weekend motors, Osuyas is a real popular lake, and we get a lot of fragmentation from boats going into them.
It's a relatively cheap solution, and it does have mostly positive benefits. Like, it's not going to keep everybody out, but I'd recommend it. You can get a good buoy for $200 a buoy.
And just comment on the weevils. They say for weevils to be effective, you have to have 2 to 3 weevils per plant, or 2 to 300 per acre.
So a few weevils, isn't it? Okay, so that probably brings us to part of the discussion on boat traffic. And, I don't think there's a person in here that doesn't understand that we have a problem with boats. Wake boats, if you ever saw that magazine that said, go to Christina Lake because it's the best surfing behind a boat that you can get. Well, we're all going, oh my God, where'd that come from? But that message is out there. Not only because Christina Lake is a nice lake, but it's warm. And it's easy to get to, and it's well known. So You know, a lot of us have a great, huge amount of concern about wake boats. And I know they're fun, and I know people love them, and I know they bring people here. However, they are doing an awful lot of damage to the shoreline. So, yes, we know that. What do we do about it? Well, maybe that's a discussion we need to have. Do we need to lobby the federal government? Where does the community want to go with that? Do they want to start that dialogue? Can we limit the size of boats on Christina Lake? I will tell you, several years ago, that a group of people got together and decided they didn't want sea-doos on Christina Lake. Now, I'm here to tell you, you should have heard the outcry. It was horrendous. What do you guys think you're doing? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm telling you, it fell flat. It never went anywhere. But that just will give you a bit of a feeling for what happens when you start telling people we don't want you recreating in this manner on Christina Lake. So, you know, it's a huge discussion, and we can have it, and I'm more than happy, you know, to listen to anyone that has some ideas on that. Concerned? Yes, I'm sure you're all concerned, right?
I just want to say on Lake Vesuvius, we have that same problem with wakeboard boats because as everyone knows, Vesuvius is the Mediterranean of Canada.
Yep.
We get a lot of those.
It is the new recreation thing out there right now is the wake boats and huge wakes.
More buoys.
Bring down the size of the pond, right? So, you know, that's an issue. There are so many things that we're having to look around, all the health of the lake completely. It's not just milfoil, it's not just fish, it's not just whatever. And speaking of fish, there's one thing I want to say about fish. You know, I get people saying to me, what the hell is it about these fish? They've got more power than I have. Well, if we pay attention, we all know and we think about it, the fish actually tell the healthier lake. And they help keep it healthy. And so it's got to work like this. It's not because we think the fish are better than everybody else. It's that we know they have to be part of that ecosystem. So, Alan, do you want to add anything about the fish?
No, I'm being a bad kid. I'm making jokes, making Andy laugh. Sorry.
That's okay. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's my job as ecosystem biologist, and it's looking at that system as a whole in every piece, whether it's your native aquatic plants, your invasive aquatic plants, your native fish species, your water quality, your turbidity, all of that stuff plays in. And so managing milfoil is really important. Why is it important? It will help us maintain water quality. It will help us maintain healthy fish populations. It won't necessarily help us with the wakeboard issue, but, you know, everything does end up being interconnected, and we do need to look at those things as a whole, and hopefully not on trumping cars.
But. So, you know, the message we were trying to get out today, more or less, is the fact that, yes, we've been paying attention for a long time. And have we started documenting? Yes, we've been documenting for the last few years, big time. Al Stanley's got a book like this, and I saw it. I was glad to hear on his presentation that he talked about making that available for the rest of you to see, so that you know indeed we are paying attention.